If we're in a dark space or we're sad, we're not in the word, we're not worshiping well, we're choosing to isolate, and we're having some hard days, it's often then that the devil reminds us of other hard days because he wants to keep us down.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, in a recent piece in Time magazine, Jessica Goudeau, she's the author of After the Last Border, Two Families and a Story of Refuge in America. She asked a challenging question in her piece in Time, really of her mom. She asks this, quote, "How can I keep from damaging my children by letting them hear these hard stories about our family? What if all they take away is the bad and they can't see the good?" End quote. Now, the piece in Time really goes into the whole dynamic of what she's talking about. But it led me to really kind of ask you this and kind of jump into this idea. How do we talk to our kids about things that we're not really proud about with our family? I heard a speaker recently talk about this need for especially men to have a time of confession and absolution, kind of saying in the middle of his presentation, everyone in the audience likely has something that they've never told anyone before. And I think as us, especially as men, and probably as moms too, I'm not a mom, so I don't really know, but I'm assuming this, there's dark things in our lives that we don't really like talking about. And we maybe will realize that our kids might find out about some of those dark things later on. Is it a good habit for us to talk to our kids about some of these, really challenging times or periods of our stories so that they can hear it? But what if they, like Jessica says, what if they don't take away the good that we've kind of, found or ascribed to a situation and they only see the bad? How should we talk to our kids about tough times in our lives?
It's worth thinking through, right? I don't think there's an easy, automatic, everybody do it this way answer. I would say that biblically, if you're raising your children in the faith of the God of the Bible, children are called to obey their parents and to honor their parents and to respect their parents. I wouldn't tell them anything that would cause them to disrespect and dishonor you. So I would ask not just their chronological age, but their character age. Are they capable of interpreting this correctly and understanding things like the cause effect? So if you're going to tell a story about your family and something tragic that happened, are you ascribing blame? Are you going to admit you're part of the problem? And why are you telling them now? Are you telling them now because you see them going down the similar path? And you're able to say to them, I have regrets. I thought that it would be fun. I thought it would be great to, disobey my parents. I thought I was above reproach. And whoa, this is what happened. And on my darkest days, I can go back there so quickly and I can still feel the penetrating eyes of my dad. And I was so sad to have disappointed him so deeply. And son, I don't want you to do that because it's not worth it. There's other ways to have fun. So again, why are you telling them? You're not going to tell them to make yourself sound like the cool kid on campus, I hope. And you're going to tell them when you feel like they're capable of learning something from it. And then again, as a Bible believer, then you talk about how God turns all things out for good for those who love him. So then maybe there is a victory part of the story that you make sure that you include. That would be appropriate. I also will say that if it's public and there's a chance that they're going to find out from someone else, they should find out from you. We know someone whose mom went through a very, very difficult time and it affected her relationship with her children, but she did not tell her children. And when her children found out from someone else, it was not a good situation. So if there's something public in your past that could be found out, I'd rather your kids hear about it from you than from a grandmother, a cousin, a old high school friend or whatever.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I think that's really important. Those are good things to process and think through, and even to really, put ourselves in understanding what this could do to our kids. When we've maybe sensed that it's now appropriate for us to have this conversation, this hard conversation, what are some of the maybe topics or high points that we should hit inside of the story so that we don't totally upend our kids and wreck maybe some security or sensibilities, but that we can kind of address this with them? How do we maybe, I don't want to say maybe frame the story. Is there a
Mhm.
best way to kind of frame out how we talk to our kids about this?
Yeah, that's actually, I think, a good analogy. I would most likely include what caused it. Were you lonely and isolated and therefore you were deceived? Were you recognized looking back that you had developed some pride and had started to experiment with little things and you got away with them, so it was easier to think you'd get away with something bigger. So, I do think that if we look back with honesty on our lives, we see that there were things that caused the things that we're gonna talk to our kids about. So I would talk about that, and then I think we gotta end on that victory note. What's the end result of it? Like, how long did the pain last? Did our relationships ever get fixed? If in fact our relationship went south because of decisions that we made, what kind of regrets do we have, and how have we processed those? And if the devil brings them back, it's not God that brings back those times. But like I said a few minutes ago, if we're in a dark space or we're sad, we're not in the Word, we're not worshiping well, we're choosing to isolate, and we're having some hard days, it's often then that the devil reminds us of other hard days because he wants to keep us down. So how do we handle that? The reminder. God doesn't remind us. God forgives and forgets, and it's not God reminding us. So if we are being reminded of a past sin or past hurt, then how do we process that? What do we say to the devil about that? I would include those kinds of discussions with the kids.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I think that's helpful. To close, I kind of want you to help me walk through this a little bit more. I think I'm a time and a place person. I like to know where I'm going to have these conversations or how I'm going to walk through it, and I think we've kind of framed out maybe how to have the conversation. But is it important for us also to think through maybe time and place to do that? And how important is it for our kids, maybe inside of their smarts, that we do this? When somebody hears hard news, is it helpful to put them into a place or to frame it out in such a way that they're really, I don't know, maybe natural kind of in that environment, that they like to be around trees, so we're outside in the trees, or that they like to, be on a walk with us because their body's smart, so we would do it on a walk. Is it healthy for us to think through that and maybe, give us a little walk down of what you think might be some helpful places to put kids when we're having hard conversations based on their smarts?
Yeah, that's really intriguing, and I would certainly agree. When we're gonna talk with kids about hard stuff and even really good stuff, we want them to understand what we're saying and remember what we're saying, and so if we can give them the environment that's going to be most positive for them, then it's a win-win. So, word smart kids love thinking with words and might actually be most comfortable at a desk or a table in a straight back chair, kind of because that's their environment. I'm certainly very comfortable at a desk. So you and I have had meaningful conversations about important ministry work at, tables and chairs, and that's just a comfortable place for us to hang out. Logic smart kids think with questions. They're gonna want time and space to ask sometimes deeper questions. Sometimes quiet will be good for them. The lack of distractions so that they can get all of their thoughts out. Logic smart kids will have lots of ideas and are gonna wanna be heard over time. Quiet might help with them. Picture smart kids, they think best when they're allowed to doodle. And I see it everywhere I go, adults all the way down to children, if they're allowed to knit while I speak or doodle while I speak, or there are some kids that listen to me and they have tattoo pens and they actually tattoo themselves with beautiful art and they listen brilliantly. So if I were talking to a kid or a teen or a preteen about hard stuff and I knew that this kid was picture smart and loves to knit, I say, hey, bring your knitting needles and your yarn. Let's go over to the park bench, or again, paper and doodling pens might be good. For music smart kids, music in the background, possibly. Another way to process with music smart kids, which could be really profitable, is let's find a song that expresses what our heart is feeling. And if you and your kid were to search your Spotify list as an example to find a song that includes something relevant, what a deep conversation you would have as your son describes, no, that's not quite right. Let's keep looking. Body smart kids, like you were describing, they want to move. They think best when they move. So it could be simply going for a walk. It could be a rocking chair or a swing. Friends of mine in Colorado Springs in their backyard have a huge swing that goes back and forth that fits probably 4 people. And they've told me about the meaningful conversations they've had there with their children because of the freedom and that's also good for nature smart kids who want to feel the breeze on their face. People smart kids think well with other people and will just want to have a conversation with you. Probably won't want to have it timed. They will want some freedom in that. They will need the freedom to speak up without quick judgment and the need to listen to you. So any environment that would create that would be good. And what I think of for self-smart kids, these are the kids who think deeply inside of themselves. They crave quiet and peace, privacy, and space, and they might prefer talking in the dark. Lots of kids tell me they don't want to see your face when they're going to disappoint you because they don't want to see the pain in your eyes. They don't want to see the unhappy face that you might give them. And so when you're talking about your own pain or the pain a child has had, and you think that they're a quiet, reflective, inside thinker, you might want to go to the dark. You could also do something like a drive where they're not able to look at you while you're talking about the time when you were 14 and you disrespected your dad and did something that was really foolish.
As Dr. Kathy was talking today, it reminded me of a Bible passage. It comes out of Genesis chapter 35, and I'll begin reading at verse 2. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods that you have and purify yourselves. Change your clothes, and then come and let us go up to Bethel, where I will lay an altar for the Lord our God, who answered me in the day of my distress and who has been with me wherever I go." So they gave Jacob all their foreign gods that they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak in Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell on all the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jumping down now to verse 9. After Jacob returned from Paddan Aram, God appeared again to him and blessed him. And God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." And so he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am the Lord God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac before you, I now give to you, and I give you this land to your descendants after you." And then God went up from him at that place where they had talked to him. I like this passage because it highlights the fact that Jacob did something really challenging. He went and addressed some sin that was evident inside of the camp of the people that were Israel. And later on, God comes and meets with him and talks to him. And they have this amazing conversation where God really blesses him in a really special and unique way. Now, I know that this isn't a promise for us every time that we have a hard conversation with our kid and address something that happened in our past, like some sin, and talk about how we're going to change our ways now moving forward. But I do think that it's a great outline for us, that when we see things, it's important for us to address them. We're the parents. We're the people that are in charge in this kind of adult in the room situation. We need to address these things with our kids. But I think what we find is that when we do that, it helps them. It helps give them a sense of who they are and what we're doing here. It gives them also a sense of security, that we're going to address things that are challenging, that are dark. And it helps them understand that they can come and talk to us when we have these situations, but then also inside the middle of that, that we're people that seek justice and we want to do what's right. And I think doing that can really be a bright light that shines and cuts through some confusion, darkness, and maybe even some challenges that our kids are facing. Let's talk to them about some tough times in our lives and what the Lord has done. And in that, have some really important conversations even about where we're at today and maybe habits, attitudes, practices that we need to change in our families now. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment, Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender. Thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to spending the week with you here and seeing you here again tomorrow.